I would like to go over the assignment. Here we see a web page that has quite a bit of content. Notice we have a footer section, and we also have this banner section. So we will pretend that in this website there are many pages, and the banner section and the footer section exist on every page. What you will be doing, you will be creating two PHP includes and include the HTML for the footer and the HTML for the banner in this page. You are given an HTML file. Therefore, you need to save this with a PHP extension so that the PHP code can be executed. Notice on this page there is a form. This form is already validated with HTML5. If I were to fill this form in and click Submit, notice I get a message here thanking me, meaning the first name and the last name, for subscribing to the newsletter, and it says we will send the newsletter to the email address that was here. Notice that this message comes back on the same PHP page. Notice that the message loads here, not at the top where it normally would. Let's take a look at the address here. The file name is index.php. It posted back to that same file, and I also added a hash indicator so that it would jump down to this newsletter section. You will be writing some PHP code that will execute when the submit button is clicked, and the action of the form will be this page. The message will be placed inside the body. You will not use a separate PHP file to give the message. You will also be making sure that the data being sent is quality data. You will strip any slashes, remove any spaces, and you will use the HTML special chars function to convert any possible HTML into the special character so that no malicious damage can occur. You will do this by using a function. That function will also be placed in an include file because the chances are you're going to want to use that function again for other forms. So let's take a look at the HTML. In the body, here I have the banner section. So this will be removed. It will be stored in a file with a .html extension because it is pure HTML, and you will replace that with a PHP include. Here is the footer section. This code will be removed. It will be stored in an HTML file, and it will be replaced with a PHP include. Here we see the HTML removed and the PHP include code. Notice that the file name is .html, and when you view this in the browser, you will see the raw HTML, not the PHP code. When you create the message to the user, you will store the message in a variable. I want to see one echo statement and a variable. I do not want to see server_post and the name attribute of the form element. That is unprofessional and it clutters up your code. You will use a variable. Notice that there is an ID for this newsletter, and I am using that in the URL so that when the page loads, we will see the message. Here is the action of my form. This is the $_server PHP_self global variable. This expression evaluates to the file name itself. You are not going to hard code in the file name. You will use $_server PHP self. You will also use the HTML special chars function in the event that someone may try to add something that could be malicious. And here is how I created the hash indicator. I really concatenated pound newsletter with this expression. When this form is submitted to itself, which is commonly referred to as a postback, here is the name of the file, pound newsletter, and that is essentially a hash point. In HTML, it's a fragment identifier that will jump to the ID point here. I would like to teach you a little bit about how PHP works, especially when you are posting the form results to the same page. When the browser loads this page, it reads from the top to the bottom. Notice I have an error message here. Why do I have an error message? I have an error message because in my PHP code, I have an echo statement $MSG. That has not been defined yet. So whenever you're working with variables in a page that are going to ultimately display information, you need to initialize those variables to an empty string so that there will not be an error message here. I will also point out all of your PHP code will be placed on top of the doc type where it belongs. So I will comment out, here is my message variable. I need to initialize it to suppress that error message. Now I just loaded the page. I don't have an error message. I'm looking at the code again, and I have my include, which has the function called check input, and I'm checking my 3 different form elements, and then here's my completed message. Now when I load my page, look what I see. I have some error messages here. Well, I wonder what could be causing that. Again, I'm just trying to show you how PHP works. It reads from the top down. So if we look in our code, it has no idea of what this stuff is. Why? Because that's coming from the form. We didn't submit the form yet. So all of this has to be suppressed until the form has been submitted. How do we do that? We use an if condition, and again, we use our $_server requests method. So this code will only be executed if it's being called from the form on this page. Now when I reload the page, I have no error messages. I have no error messages down here. And there we go. One of the goals of this assignment is to show you how to work with posting the form back to itself to the same page. So I have tried to show you the process so that you understand how to avoid the errors.